Right, guys, let's get into it. So, some hip stuff today. Potentially, you may need a band. You could get away with a towel today, quite possibly. Or if you can reach with your hand to pull yourself into position, like so, then neither will be required. Okay, so that's just dependent on lever length, ability to get into a position. So just to give us a little extension. And then possibly a yoga strap if you've got one knocking around, or a towel might suffice also, or the band. Okay, just a little heads up, that'll be for an isometric. So in the bottom of a squat, say if we can't get hands like so into a position to create an isometric in the bottom of a squat, then again, to give us a little extension, that could come in really handy. Okay, so let's get into it. To begin with, we're going to go with some cars, all right? So for our warm-up, get into our rotations, get things moving. So make sure we've got your microphone on. Good start, isn't it? So hands come down, try to lock the torso in position, all right, to stop any rotation through here potentially. Then I'm going to pull knee up into flexion, hip into flexion, and open the hip up. Little pause there. Now start to rotate, pulling down and round slowly. Again, if you're brand new to this, just explore. Take your time, all right? Pull up into flexion. Open the hip up. Then I'm starting to tease out this rotation at the hip, almost like I'm hovering the foot where it is, as I pull the knee down to meet the other knee, and then drag the foot along for the ride. Two back the other way, please. So open the hip up, go slowly. You might get to like here, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm good there. You might have a little bit more. Now start to pull up and over the top. So you might start to get a little bit more. Moving the knee towards the ceiling. Opening up, feeling this stuff squeeze, pull down and round. Sorry, pull down to the floor. Now pulling back towards the other knee. Open the hip up. As you open up now, see if you can keep the heel as high as you can. By that I mean we're not letting it drop here. Keep this stuff on. Now carving out that rotation at the hip. Pulling up into that flexed position at the hip and abducted towards the ceiling and pull back down. Breathe. Swap at the sides, please. So again, if you're new to this, just take your time. If you get a little bit lost, that's absolutely fine. So pull up into flexion. Open the hip up. Then start to carve out that rep. Knee pulling down towards the other knee. This lags behind. Open the hip up. Carve it over the top. Pull down and round. Pull that knee into extension. Open the hip up. Pull over the top. I think I've lost myself there. Hang on. Let's go the other way. Open up. Now rotate. So you're teasing the foot round, keeping the load on the hip. Pulling down and round. Back up into flexion, one more rep. Open that hip up. And carving that rep out. So as I'm pulling down, I'm trying to almost hover the heel where it is, creating this rotation at the hip. And swap it aside again, please. Let's go one more set. So again, as you're moving through this stuff, just think there's an opportunity to explore your hip. Like, what can your hip do? You're not trying to match, say, what I'm doing. Some people might have more movement, some people might have less. It's absolutely cool. So as you pull up here, into flexion, you might find you stop like here, or you might find you've got a little bit more, or a little bit more. All right, just try and make sure that we're not, say, pulling through the lower back, for example. All right, and just trying to get the knee as high as we can without keeping the load on the hip. Now open up. So as you open the hip up, you might find now, if you have a little look ski, you might be opening up through here. Try and keep that chest facing across the floor. Now pulling down through the rest of the rep. Pull up into flexion. Neighbours on the power tools. Then get the memo. Rotate. And then we'll go 2 the other way, please. So open the hip up. And just carving that rep out over the top. And if you think of, say, cues in your head that make more sense to you, you don't have to listen to me. Like, put your favourite music on, whatever you want to do. If you just want to follow along, wicked. If you've got the gist of it, I will not be offended if you mute it. Pull up and over the top, pull down, round, and swap sides, please. One more set. Boy. So flex at the hip, open the hip up. Now rotate. Just guide yourself if you want to, that's fine. If you find it helpful using your hands to help give yourself some biofeedback, what's going on. Opening up the hip, try not to open up through here, keep the load on the hip. And then teasing out that motion all the way down into what is now going to be hip extension. So imagine like running or walking. Now we're going to go back the other way. Try and hover this as high as you can. Open the hip up. And now you notice the foot starts to drag under the knee a little bit. Sort of back this way a little bit more. As you pull up, almost imagine over the hurdle if you were upright. Pull down into extension again. Maybe you feel a squeeze through here. Open the hip up. And just start to imagine, if you can, almost that rotation in here. So the rotation within the bigger rotation. And then up to a seated position, please. A little bit of knee rotation. So we're going to start with what we'd call a capsule car. Right? So if you ever hear me say capsule car, we're touching on the fact that we want to hold the joint in a specific joint angle, and then we're going to create some rotation at that joint. Right? So we're going to go knee, and we're going to have a capsule car. So you imagine tibia, lower leg bone. We're going to try and get this coming this way a little bit. All right. So from there, imagine a pivot point here, and I'm going to try and rotate through here. So lower leg bone on upper leg bone. All right. So I tend to find, and people I coach, not all the time, but sometimes, palpating back here can be useful. Okay. So you'll start to get your hands on some hamstring stuff, all right, amongst other things. And then as we pull to the outside, so we create this little bit of rotation here, start to feel a pull through here. Now you can think of just pulling the heel back through the floor a little bit to feel a little bit more tension here if you want to. Then we'll rotate back the other way. So you notice how we're talking now about a small motion. Right, with the hip that we've just done, potentially big ranges of movement. The knee, more obviously so in extension and flexion, right? But in order to keep the knee healthy and to be able to explore flexion and extension well, the knee needs to be able to rotate. We need this tibia rotating well on the femur, or flip the other way around if you're talking about movement in a different way. We don't need to go into that right now. let's just see if we can get some communication between this and this. So we're going to carry on with this for another 30 seconds, all right? If you are brand new to this and you're looking at your knee right now and you're like, dude, I have no idea what you're asking me to do. I can't move my knee, my hips moving, my foot wants to move. This is all stuff that's really common at first. So do not worry, all right? If it's a tiny amount of movement you're getting that you can see here, the shin bone going from like here across like this a little bit, wicked. What you may find is you go to do this and you get this going on. Try to cool yourself out on that, all right? It does take time, but it's time well spent. Like you'll hear me say a lot as we swap sides, stuff like my squats, my playing of sport, etc. Since I've trained like this, has never felt so good. All right, so it's worth it in the long term. So rotate, squeezing that heel back into the floor. You feel a little bit of tension here. Then rotate back the other way. So that tibia, that headlight starts to come this way a little bit. So internal rotation, pulling into external rotation. We've got about another 30 seconds more on this side, all right? Pulling back and forth. You might have already started to feel like quite a nice pump through this stuff. It might feel a little bit like some tension, like deep in and around the knee. What you'll probably find is, like I said at the top, is the pump that you get is very, very different to the way we see training being done a lot at the moment. You feel it differently. All stuff that is designed to benefit the other stuff you do. From there, some ankle stuff, please. So you can do this from seated if you want. If you prefer to sit in a chair, that's absolutely fine. Pull the foot up off the floor. Gas pedal all the way down. So all the way down. Get a pull going on through here. Then I want you to think of pulling into this part of your ankle here. Okay, so we're thinking like 2 joints through here that we're trying to stimulate mainly. And this other stuff is getting pulled along for the ride. So I pull through here to create this tilting effect here. And I start to pull the foot up towards my shin, keeping this tilt through here for as long as I can. Then to get more dorsiflexion, so the foot pulling towards my shin, I have to tilt in towards this outside of the ankle. So I start to tilt this way and keep pulling, the foot towards your shin. Gas pedal all the way down. All the way down. Tease it out. Tease it out. We want to try and explore those outer limits where we're not very efficient. Gas pedal all the way down and pull it in towards this part of the ankle here. So I'm pulling in towards inside the ankle. I keep pulling in towards the inside of the ankle as I pull up. Then in order, like we just said, to get this closer to here, I have to start to tilt the other way. This might feel crampy pretty freaking quickly. Don't worry if it does. Slower you can move through this, the better. Alright? Then back the other way. So now explore. Sweeping round, almost touching the floor. Pulling up now into dorsiflexion, which is here to here with the foot. And really trying to create this tilting effect. So pulling the outside of the foot towards the leg, towards your face this way. Now try and carve out a rep over the top. So go from here to here. Now gas pedal all the way down, pushing down, 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 down. Imagine pulling through here to get you there. Let's go one more rep. Putting the foot towards your shin. Or you try and keep this as still as you can. Rotate over the top. Pulling towards here. Gas pedal all the way down. Real slow, real slow, real slow. And swap the sides, please. Let's do the same on the other side. So if it's cramping, no worries, all right? Try and move through it as slowly as you can. Gas pedal all the way down, so foot gas pedaling down. Remember, in terms of joints, 2 joints through here, okay, we're trying to work. So subtalar and talar crural joint through here, forming the ankle, pulling the rest of the foot, all of these other joints along for the ride, okay? So trying to drive the movement from here best we can. So gas pedal down. Now this tilting into here, so like I'm trying to pull the ankle this way. It might be a really small movement, but you feel a lot of tension pulling through here. Now start to pull the foot up towards the shin. And now start to rotate the outside of the foot up towards your face, towards your knee, to create this tilting effect this way. Foot pulling here, and now push down. Keep pressing down, keep pressing down. Rotate. Pull back up. And now we'll go back the other way, please. So pulling up, foot is pulling towards the shin, tilting this way. Pull over the top of the rep. And as you start to tilt this way, then you're going to have to start to gas pedal down a little bit. Now really gas pedal down hard. Really pulling through here. Rotate across, we'll call it the bottom of the rep. Pulling up. Pulling towards the outside of the ankle. Explore across. Pulling towards the inside of the ankle. And gas pedal all the way down. Beautiful. Like I said at the top, if you're like, why on earth is that so freaking hard? It's because we're not trying to be efficient, right? In training, we're trying to use training to find the spots that require some real work. And if we improve the way those areas handle load, then we get access to those areas when we then go to move through whatever it is, again, day to day, we love to do. We can start to expand our ability to explore space well. So if we just continue to train in, say, our mid-ranges in the same positions over and over and over again, we're not encouraging that change that we can get if we try to be, or we don't try to be efficient in training and we prioritize building up the internal environment. Then you might have some movements you love to do, like some squats, deadlifts, whatever it is, pull-ups, push-ups. Then you can bring joints and tissues to those movements that have got more capacity to load, all right, through greater ranges. So from there, pull down into a 90-90-ish shape, please. Okay, we're going to use this today to get after some hip stuff, all right? If you don't find it particularly useful as a position, then please ping me a note, all right? Because there's alternatives that we can use instead of the 90-90 shape to get after the deep stuff of the hip. All right, so from there, what I want you to do is try and think about torso position relative to lower limb. All right, so I'm not going to crank through here just to try and stay with my hands, off the floor all the time. All right, so kickstands, using your hands is not cheating. Hands can come down like so. All right, kickstand out and allow yourself, if you need to be moving through here, to use your hands to help support you. All right, so the vast majority of people I coach are going to be more through here and here than they are going to be, say, upright through here. Okay, we can get there over time, okay, quite possibly, but meet yourself where you are at the moment. Now pulling the knee off the floor as far as you can go, and keep this knee down as close as you can to the floor. Again, this knee might not be touching the floor, that's okay at the moment. Pull back down. real slow. Go again. Pull up a little bit quicker. You might get to like here. You might have more than me. Somewhere in between. Pull back down. Now what I want you to do is try and drive it best you can from the hip. So you imagine the hip rotating to drive this motion, all right? You're not going to try and move just the knee from A to B, all right? Think about the hip rotating and pulling through here to get the knee into that position. Then as you pull down, think of the opposite. So really winding the hip up, nice and slowly with plenty of intent, to get a little bit more out of the load of that tissue, right? And now we'll pull it all the way over the top. So go with this knee first. Then when this one has to follow, then really start to pull it along for the ride. So I'm trying to keep this distance the same. You might be more like this at the moment. Well, again, same spiel already, or you might have more than me. It varies from person to person. Pulling down. And as I do so, I'm trying to keep this distance here, right? Pull down, pull down, pull down. Let's do it again. So same again, okay, on this side now. Yoga mats pulling apart. It's not cricket, is it? So if you can remember that cue from the last set, try and implement it now for this one, right? So pulling up off the floor. Winding the hip up. Get to where you feel like, oh, this one feels like it really wants to pull this way. Resist that and then pull back down. We'll go 2 more a day. Pull up. Pull back down. Again, I'm trying to keep the load on here. I tell you what, for the last rep on this side, if you want to add a little bit more sauce, now you're pulling through the hip here. You're pulling the foot down through the floor this way. Now as you pull back down, you think of pulling from the hip and you think of getting light through the foot. Like you're trying to pull the foot off the floor. That might cramp, okay? If it does, again, don't worry. Like, just take a step back. Chill if you need to. If you can, like, back off and feather back into that work, yeah? Cramping is just telling us something about that tissue, all right? We want to improve the load-bearing capacity of it. It's a signal, right? So it's not something we have to, panic about. If you can move into it, meet yourself where you are at, wicked. At first, you might just have to be like, whoa, hang on a minute. And just have a little move around, get out of that position and come back in, all right? So a little heads up on that. If you imagine Cramp City being here, you're going to come up to it, you have a little look at it from a distance, you don't go all the way there, and then you just hover there. So you can feel it, you can feel it, you can feel it, you're getting that work done, but you're not letting it take a hold, so it inhibits your ability to move at all. I hope that's making some sense. Let's go again. So pull all the way up. Keep that distance. And as you're moving through this now, guys, again, really try and drive the movement from the hips. Don't worry if that's really, really tricky at first. You're like, what do you mean by that? That will come, again, over time, the ability to really think about like an area of the body. Where do I want to load? And then you'll feel that tension layering out from there. You might have got it straight away. If so, Coolio, Iglesias, obviously. So from there, guys, what we'll get into is a little bit of 90-90 pails rails. Okay, so some isometrics. I should have given you a heads up on this to begin with. Apologies. If you can't get your knee down to the floor, no need to force it. Okay, so front on view is probably going to be best for this. So we're going to go this leg first. All right, take your time with this. This will be very similar to the beginner session, but doing the basics brilliantly. Any training is crucial, right? So yoga block possibly required to pop under the knee. Ab mats are absolutely brilliant. I haven't got one on me at the moment. but as you've got that edge to them, that sort of cambered edge, you can slide them in. And then it can be a case of over the weeks you can see your progress. So at first you might need like the whole ab mat pretty much underneath here. Okay, you might even turn it around the other way, so you've got the biggest bit here. And then you might over the weeks and months, start to see that coming down, right? As we start to increase range of movement at the hip. So to begin with, something propped in underneath that knee, all right? If you can get the hand in right the way like this, right? Again, as you get more familiar with this, if this is your first session, wicked, because this is perfect in terms of an explanation. If you're like, Matt, just get on with it, please, mate. What say you could be doing here is getting into your passive stuff already. So you could have started to find the stretch already and like get ahead of me if you're confident with that. That's absolutely cool. All right. So from there, we've got something underneath the knee, whether it be a shoe, yoga block, whatever it is to prop it up. You could go with a cushion if it's like a, quite dense, stiff cushion. All right, but ideally something that's going to give you plenty of feedback here. From there, guys, what I want you to do is I want you to think of now torso position, same as we just talked about. So some people might be working from here. You can bring the trail leg up, all right, to feed a little bit of slack into here. Now from there, we're going to focus on the rotational element at the hip, all right? So what I want you to try and think about as you're setting this up is, again, torso position here, relevant to the hip. So I'm not like this. Then I'm going to think of bum cheek of this leg, okay, or this limb. Bum cheek is going to be going towards the wall behind me. So I'm trying to pull that back this way. You might feel like some traction on the floor as you start to pull against the floor that way. Belly button starts to pull that way. All right, so you start to create a bowing effect. So I'm pulling belly button this way, bum cheek here that way. So I'm starting to create this tilting effect at the pelvis. As I do that, I can start to create some tension in some tissue. So you might start to feel some stuff back here, like, ooh, yeah, I can feel that. You imagine you're tilting this here, so you're tilting this, and it's creating a bowing effect back here, lengthening some tissue, loading it. From there, then, what you can start to do is you can think about moving over the top of this leg here. So you can think about your pelvis through here, motion through here, just some little twists and turns, and you might find a little bit more load. All right, particularly moving this here this way a little bit to create a twisting motion like this. All right, and you might have felt this again, like ooh, a little bit through here. As long as we haven't got a real pinch going on, some tension is fine. It's what we want, really. Especially tension back here. Now, we'll go about 20 seconds, a little bit of breath work, all right? So, and then try and extend the exhale, all right? Don't worry about being overly precise with it at the moment. Just take an inhale in through the nose if you can, and then a slightly longer exhale out through the nose. So it might be roughly 2 seconds in, 4 seconds out. Some of you might be able to go a little bit longer than that. Slightly longer inhale, slightly longer exhale. Okay? Now, from there, what I want you to do is start to take this foot, and if you could see me move, you guys are going to stay there. If you could see me move, I would be trying to do this down through the floor. Start to do it slowly. All right, so squeezing from the hip, squeezing through here. You start to think about trying to rotate at the hip if you could, but the floor's not going to let you, right? If the floor wasn't there, the foot would pull underneath here, and we'd start to create this rotational effect at the hip. Ramp it up a little bit more. Imagine a volume dial in terms of the intensity that you're bringing to the rep. and you're starting to push that foot down into the floor, like 60% effort, something like that. And then think about the hip. Now driving from the hip, driving the foot down into the floor like that. And if you're feeling now tension starting to radiate through the rest of the body, wicked. You match that, all right? So you match the tension here throughout the rest of the body. And you go with whatever you are confident with. Don't have to force this. If it feels sketchy at any point, you just back off a little bit, all right? If you're unsure of anything. If you start to ramp up the tension, you're just like, whoa, this is hard work. You're getting work done, and you're like, cool. All right, stay with it. Pay attention to this. Hold that tension now, guys. Hold it. So you might say, you know, you've got 3, 4, 5 people watching this, maybe at the same time. And in terms of tension, you could have one person going 100%, one person going 70, 50, one person hold it for another 5 seconds, going at maybe 30%. In 2, 1, I now want you to try and pull the foot off the floor that way, trying to almost like kick yourself in the head. It's not going to go anywhere. It might go a little bit. You might start to get a little bit of a hover going on. As long as you're feeling the tension switch at the hip, you're trying to pull through here. So you imagine this rotation this way, trying to pull the foot that way. Keep pulling. Keep pulling. Keep pulling. It might start to fatigue. Keep pulling. 2, 1. And breathe. Give you 30 seconds. Just relax a little bit. And again, just to shed some light on it for the rest of the session, if you are really new to this, you don't need to ramp the tension right up. Okay, you might find spending the time and the tension that we are, just doing that at like 30-40% effort, the intensity will take care of itself. And that 30-40% effort will just become like 60-70, what feels like maybe 80% effort. And you're like, oh my word, what is happening at my hip? All right. So from there, what we want to now try and do is try and create a hold. All right. So we're going to try and hold the lower leg, suspend that. All right. To further train the stuff of the hip. Okay. On this regressive angle in here. So if you feel some tension through here pulling, all good. This is where you can use your band. All right. If you can reach with your hand, so you can go here. I can probably do it with my hand here and hold. Cool. All right. But that's also going to be dependent on lever lengths and ranges of movement at the hip. So as you can see, like we said at the top, like a towel will do. You can get creative if you want. All right. But I tend to like to recommend certain things. And then if you're confident freestyling other stuff, all right, it's not going to break, for example, then yeah, see what you can come up with. So from there, obviously I didn't say that. So from there now, try and pull the foot off the floor a little bit. And now I want you to create some tension at the hip. What you can do now is the beauty of if you've got something to help you with this is you can keep the object there and you can take a little bit of load with your arms, right? So if I was now to release this completely, I've then got to take the load of all of this on these tissues through here. I can immediately feel my hip working really hard. Play along with this if you're happy doing so, right? You might just want to watch to begin with. That's totally cool. Now, slowly lowering the foot back down, back down, back down. Not all the way to the floor. Or it might be on the floor, that's fine. And then I'm going to relax at the hip again. Okay? And pull back up. So, in terms of the amount of movement you get, movement does not have to be big. Alright, I'll have people saying classes doing this stuff, and I'll have a variation of people sort of foot just off the floor, maybe even just touching the floor, but they still get a great stimulus at the hip. Wicked. That's what we're looking for, some load into this tissue. So the foot might still be touching the floor a little bit. That's fine. all the way through to say some people that have got more range than me and they're like this, and then we want to be moving a little bit more upright, okay, so the foot is closer to the floor. I hope that's making sense. And again, if I'm ever say coaching through stuff like this in class and you've got plenty of experience with this, you could be repping this out now, okay? You could be say 4 or 5 real sticky reps in, okay, and then chill. Excuse me. So from there now, let's go again together. So pull up. I'd probably be about, maybe about here-ish. And then hold. I'll join you for this. Hold. Hold. Slowly back down towards the floor. Come back in again. Pull up. It's really useful actually, even if you have got a fair amount of range, because it allows you to keep a good position with the band. And hold. So I hold with tension here. Hold. And then I lower slowly back down towards the floor. Go again. One more rep. It's a spicy meatball. Hold. 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 And then lower it back down slowly. Slowly, 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 slowly. Breathe. It's no joke, right? Now, finish it off. Yeah, just a little bit more. We're going to go some lift offs. All right. So again, if you get like the smallest amount of movement, that is totally wicked. All right. Again, if you're like, I'm not sure I'm quite at this yet, then you can use this opportunity here to chill, and you can move through some of those slow 90-90 switches that we went through at the start of the session. All right. So from there, we're going to lift off. So in 2, 1, pull, and slowly come back down. So if you get that much movement, I now want you to move up a little bit. 2, 1, pull. Slowly back down. Again, that's okay if we're starting out. If you want to test yourself more, 2, 1, pull, and then we're about there, right? Slowly back down. We're going to go 2 more. Pull. Slowly back down. So we're looking for this nice bit of like a good reaction from this stuff. So you can pull a little bit quicker if you're confident doing so, and pull. Slowly back down. Beautiful. Breathe. Now, if you want to, I'll give you the option of you can go with the side lying hip car that we did at the beginning of the session, okay, or you can follow me into a quadruped one, so we can get the upper body involved a little bit more again. So pressing the floor away, hip comes up into some flexion, open the hip up, and carve out that rotation all the way around. Let's go one more rep that way. Open the hip up, carving it all the way around, pull back down, and let's go 2 the other way. Push back. Try here not to get stuck into that lower back too much, all right? Open the hip up. Rotate round. So you're trying to create that nice rotation of the hip. Push back. Keep the heel squeezing towards your bum the whole time. Think about that rotation of the hip. Pull out to the side and back in. Finish the rep. Let's finish in extension. Push back, push back, push back. And swap of the sides, please. You get to do it all again on the other side. Yay. You're loving it. I know it. I can feel it. So from there, where are we going with this? Keep the stuff handy. And if you need to pop something under here, remember to gauge it. It's going to be if your hand can get underneath easily. If it's just a little bit here, it's blocked, totally cool. All right. So a little like something trying to get under the doormat. Like, right. So from there, let's go again. All right, guys. So find a position that you are happy with. One thing you can also do with your yoga blocks, if you want to, is you can use them as extensions. All right. Again, limb length is going to dictate how we can get into different positions in training. We can use props not as crutches, but to genuinely to help us get more out of the reps we're doing. Okay, so if you find like yoga blocks really help you in terms of setting up, then please use them. Okay, that's not cheating in any way, shape or form. Okay, so you can use them as props, as extensions. All right, so from there now, where am I going? You found where you are at. You're trying to pull bum cheek towards the wall behind you. So you feel this pulling, almost this traction on the floor as you do so. Belly button pulls that way. Okay, so I'm creating this motion, like we said before, here at the pelvis, through those cues. And I'm thinking about some tension back here and possibly deep in and around the hip. All right, guys. From there, start to tap into your breathing for about, let's go 20 seconds again. It's a small primer. Inhale, exhale. If you can keep it in and out through the nose, wicked. If that's a little bit tricky for you, then try in through the nose. No to force it, and then out through the mouth. If that feels better for you at the moment. In through the nose, out through the nose is what we want to aim for over time. Any questions on your breath work, again, please ask. Let's go again. So now we've created this stretchy feel back here. We've got some feels deep around the hip to work with, as long as we've not got a real, say, deep pinch going on. If we have, that is a finding. Give me a nudge. So foot starts to pull this way now. If you could see me move, remember you're trying to pull your foot down through the floor this way. So you start to create tension through here, trying to pull with the hip there to get the foot moving like that. Isometric, yeah? Using the floor to create that tension. And ramp it slowly. If you've just gone all in on it, you've just gone, tried to leave an Incredible Hulk type dent in the floor, then back off a little bit, find that stretch again, and then come back into it, all right? So the volume starts to turn up, like 30%, 40%, 50%, 60%. And again, if you want to say you want to linger at like 30, 40%, absolutely wicked. Try and get the feels you want to get. Okay, that's not sandbagging or anything like that. That is intelligent training as far as I'm concerned. But if you feel confident and you're like, this feels really good, I'm ramping it up. You've got about 70, 80% now. Hold. Feeling that tension irradiate through the rest of the body. Some strong pushing the floor away. I'm not just like this through the upper body, trying to chill, get it all involved in it. Hold that tension now. Hold it. Hold it. Hold for another 5 seconds if you can. 2, 1, try and pull the foot off the floor. Try and pull the foot towards your head. Try and keep yourself in the head, innit? So now I'm trying to create this rotation like this, like this. I'm pulling. If you've got it like beautifully right, you're going to feel tension in the hip, almost some crampy feels, maybe some cramp, and the foot's going nowhere, right? You might find you get a bit of a response where the foot starts to pull a little bit. Hold it for another 10 seconds. Hold it. Keep that tension at the hip. 10 seconds was a bit steep, wasn't it? Hold it. 2, 1, relax. Okay, so just to shed a bit more light on that is if you get some movement at the foot, then that's okay. Like if you get a bit of movement like this, then say for the next sessions you do, just pay attention to that, because you want to try and get it a little bit closer to the floor, a little bit closer, so you don't actually get any movement, but you get lots of tension at the hip, right? By doing that, we can then start to train potential changes in the ranges where we are strong, okay? So we can access from there and be strong, obviously. Proper strong. Now let's load it up into a hold, alright guys? So same as we did on the other side, so we can probably get into it a little bit quicker now. It's the beauty of, I think, breaking it down to begin with, right? We can all try and get on the same wavelength. So I find some range, and again, it might be that tiny little bit where the foot is almost just still on the floor. And now start to create some tension at the hip. So I've relaxed to pull it up. Now create that tension, and you're going to try and hold the foot in place. Hold, hold. Hold it there. 2, 1, lower it back down slowly. Come back in, catch it. If you'll say you're getting like this much movement and you're still really try and control that slow lowering, okay, that's absolute gold to the body. Again, you'll hear me say it a lot, movement doesn't have to be big. From there, let's go again. So I'll try and find a setup. I'll join you for this. Relax and start to create some tension. You can keep some load if you want. Keep some load if you want, or you can release. Hold there. Hold there. It doesn't matter if this is pulling just a little bit up here. 2, 1, slowly back down, and we're going to go one more rep. Relax. Find some tension at the hip, and hold. And hold. And slowly lower it back down. Slowly lower it down. Ooh. That is indeed a spicy meatball. So from there, we'll go for some lift-offs. Alright, and like I said on the other side, if you're like, I don't think this is, that's quite for me yet, then get into some 90-90 switches if you want. Alright, keep things moving. So from there, we're going to go for our lift-offs. And again, not bothered how much height you're getting. Well, I am bothered, but I'm not bothered about, say, the amount you're getting at first. So pull up. I want you to try and feel some load at the hip. So if you're getting, say, a fair amount, that would be quite a lot. Slowly lower it back down. Just come up a little bit more. 2, 1, pull. So you can pull quicker, then slowly back down. We're going to go 3 more. Pull. Slowly back down. 2, 1, pull. Slowly back down. 2, 1, pull. Slowly back down. Oh, yes. Yes. Hip cars again, please. So, we'll go from quadruped. And again, any movement where you're like, I don't think this, like I just said, is for me at the moment, then you can pick a different variation of, say, your hip car if you want to. That's totally cool. So from there, press the floor away. So I'm pressing out with my shoulder blades, like a strong handoff for you rugby players. Flexion at the hip, open the hip up, rotating at the hip. So I keep trying to pull my heel to my bum the whole time to keep the knee as silent as I can and keep tension throughout that lower limb. Pull back down, press back out, open the hip up, pull back in, one more rep, stirring that pot up. Oh my word, it's beautiful. Right, from there, just want us to break up a little bit of the 90-90 stuff. So we're going to do a little bit of night-night stuff to follow this. If we just go supine, looking up at the ceiling, and from there now, pull up into some flexion, and I want you to rotate at the hip, so like a windscreen wiper, back and forth. Pull back across, heel pulls towards the outside, pull back in. Go again. Just trying to keep the femur here as still as you can in this position, and we're trying to create as much of an axial rotation as we possibly can. Pull back. Think of a little tuck at the pelvis as well to bring a little bit more tension to the movement. More awareness of what's going on at the hip. Then open the hip up. Really pull into that position. Try and keep other bum cheek down. So left side down, so I'm not getting pulled here. Then that little bit of rotation again. And rotate. So it's like the lower leg is like a windscreen wiper. Pulling back and forth. Try and keep this left bum cheek down. Solid base. Now start to push the heel down towards the floor. Press out, press out. You can hover the foot if you want to. Hover it if you want to. Squeeze the quads. Foot can be on the floor if you want, that's absolutely fine. If you've got the option now, beautiful. I'm just sliding it across the floor. Coolio. Now if you can, think of rotating the heel up towards the ceiling. So this way, then pulling the heel back across the floor the other way. So now we're creating again this axial rotation at the hip. Heel pulls towards the ceiling. Heel sweeps across the floor towards the outside of the body. And really try and now bring your attention to the hip and drive that movement from the hip. Keep that squeeze of the quads. The heel can be on the floor if you want, or you can hover it. Now pulling up, that nice little break at the knee. Pulling over your other knee with the heel. If you've got that much, it doesn't matter if you come to the inside, it's fine. And swap sides, please. So I'm trying to keep this bum cheek down, all right? As I abduct, as I open up the hip, which we'll do in a minute again, try and keep this bum cheek down so I'm not just getting pulled into this shape here. So go again. Rotate. Sweep back across. Rotate. Rotate. Again, if you want to load this up with your band, you've got some more experience with this stuff, please feel free to do so. Rotate. So where's my band? So band here, add some resistance to it. Rotate. Pull back. Band is winning, foot still fighting, or the hip still fighting, sorry. Pull back. Open the hip up. Keep that right bum cheek on the floor. And rotate. And rotate. 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 Let's go one more, guys. Rotate. Pull towards the outside. Pitch the band if you've gone with the band. Kick out, kick out, kick out. Feeling these hip flexors load. Try and keep that tuck of the pelvis so we're not just defaulting into that lower back. Kick out. We've got enough space. Yes. Pull down. Brush the foot along the floor. And now try and aim for those rotations at the hip if you can. If the knee doesn't extend fully, that's fine. Okay, no need to force it. If you feel like the lower back wants to get overly involved as you sweep heel towards the floor, pinky toe down towards the floor. Now reverse it. Big toe pulling over the top, towards the floor, heel pulls towards the outside. Really winding up those axial rotations, back and forth, back and forth. Again, my pace that I go at is just a suggestion. I wouldn't go too much quicker than it. You can definitely go slower. Now keep that rotation, so pinky toe pull towards the floor, heel rotate it through, and now squeeze up. Start to break at the knee. Keep this shape best you can. You might be more here, here, here. You might have more movement than me. And back up into your 90-90, please. Yeah, if your hips feel like pretty lit after this, sometimes it can feel like you've done like a full leg workout when you sort of stood doing the T or something like this afterwards. If you can feel that, or you feel like you've got this like deep rump pump going on, like in and around the hip, cool. Like I would fully expect that. A really good bet for you or thing to do is to do some hip cars. Okay, so like every half an hour or hour, when you think of it, just do some light hip cars. All right, either later on after doing this session or tomorrow morning or whatever it might be. All right. So from there, now what we're going to get into is the trail leg. All right. So you can block knee up if you need to here. That helps you. Don't need to have that. And again, if you're struggling to get this knee down here, we can either prop ourselves up on our yoga block, so we can perch ourselves on the yoga block, all right, to feed some slack into the hip, or we can go the other way around. And if we're struggling to get this down, it's sort of like here, then we can go to the shoe or the ab mat or something and pop it underneath there. All right, you want a little bit more than that. You'd want it like that. All right. So whatever it is that meets you where you're at, please use. Now, if we all start this way, and now I want you to think of pulling this bum cheek down towards the floor behind you. So I'm trying to pull this bum cheek that way. Load it up. So bum cheek pulling that way, so you create this effect here at the hip. And now you can start to meet yourself where you're at. So a case of pulling through, I was going to do it myself then, pulling through here. So the motion at the pelvis being what is going to be a real money maker. All right. We can say try and get loads of motion going on here, but that's not loading the hip, right? If we can keep the load on the hip, we think of pelvis moving over the top of this leg bone here. Pelvis moving over the top is going to be what creates tension for us. So I'm moving here. You might say get to like here and you're like, that's me. I can feel that like right through here. It feels really crampy. All right. Now, I want us to think about 20 seconds, little primer, even if it's a couple of breaths, in through the nose, out through the nose if you can. Slightly longer exhales. Get that nice bit of parasympathetic tone going on. Right then, now for a little bit of tension. So now pulling this foot slowly down through the floor this way. All right, so if you could see me move, I would be trying to create this motion here. All right. About 30%. Getting carried away myself. 40%. Losing you. Sorry. Back in the room. 50%. 60%. Maybe that's 70% if you want it. Letting that tension start to irradiate through the rest of the body. Remember, you can use these kickstands. Now keep that tension at the hip. Keep that tension at the hip. We're going to go another 5 seconds. Then in 2, 1, same as we did on the other, working the other way. Try and pull the foot this way. So now you're trying to rotate at the hip, but because you're in your end range, you get next to no movement. You might get a tiny bit, but you feel the tension now switch up across the top, possibly of the hip, through here, and it might well feel crampy through here, okay? Don't worry again if it feels crampy. Try and work through it if you can. Another 10 seconds. Keep pulling. If it starts to fatigue, that is fine. Keep pulling. Intention on the hip. Try and link the dots. 2, 1. Relax. Now we're going to go same again to get that band handy. It can be even more handy when we do the trail leg like this. So band handy, and might find you have to move, say down here, away from that trail leg to get a tiny little bit of movement. Now create some tension at the hip with the intention to hold the foot there. Keep a little bit of load with your hand if you want to, or you can take it away completely and hold. Slowly lower the foot back down. 2, 1, relax. Pull back up again. So I'll join you. I'll try and find my rep. 2, 1, excuse me. And hold. Hold. Keep the load on the hip. Try not to get this going on through here. Keep the load on the hip. 2, 1. Slowly back down. Slowly, slowly, slowly. 2, 1. Relax. One more rep, please. Find that load on the hip. Again, you can keep some tension here if you want to. Be perfectly spicy like that. Hold. Hold. 2, 1. Now lower the foot back down. Slowly lower it. Slowly. Little parachute on your heel. Sweet. Right. Lift off. Ready? So again, if you need to be moving over here, do it. 2, 1. Pull up. Slowly back down. 4 more, please. Pull up. Slowly back down. Pull up. Slowly back down. Pull up. Work it slowly back down. 2, 1, go again. Pull up. Slowly back down. I think that was 5. Getting lost in my own reps. From there, guys, kick out of that 90-90, down into your side line. We'll get into this hip again. Alright, so pull up, deflection of the hip. Open that hip up, open the door up, hands come down to lock your torso in. Remember, we don't want to open up with the hip. We want the hip to do hip things. Now think of this rotation here. So the rotation here at the joint. As you pull down, keep trying to rotate. Go again, pull up, open the hip up. And as you explore the rest of the movement, you really try and pull into the hip this way, which is going to pull the foot this way a little bit. To the other way, open the hip up. At the moment, you might find you get to sort of here and you're a little bit blocked. You might feel like you have to get into your lower back. You open up a little bit and then you feel like you have to maybe start to open up through here. Keep that motion, that load on the hip, the motion in the hip best you can, alright guys? Doesn't matter how small that movement is. Pull back down. Beautiful. Yeah, like we just said, it doesn't matter how small that movement is. The main thing is that we really start to stimulate the hip. The only way we're going to improve how that hip is moving is to stimulate the hip. Okay, if we continually utilize like pelvis hiking, torso rotation to move the hip, then movement of the hip isn't going to improve. Okay, this is what I often see happening in people's training. Okay, we're not stimulating the hip in a way that is improving the capacity of the hip. All right, we keep using the little compensations, the body being clever, trying to achieve tasks, and it pushing load elsewhere. All right, so don't worry if the movement of the hip's real small at the moment, it feels restricted. That's the start of it. All right. So from there, excuse me, that's also why you might feel some really good DOMs, all right, tomorrow, because you are really stimulating this hip stuff. Let's do it again. So bum cheek pulling down towards the floor. Start this way, so it's easier on this hip to begin with. Then you're going to pull back in towards this hip as this bum cheek pulls towards the floor. Towards the floor, we're not trying to touch the floor with it, just trying to pull it towards the floor. Again, sitting on your yoga block if you feel like you need to, or something under this knee. About 20 seconds now, 20-30 seconds of you breathing. If you want to pause this bit, then feel free to do so. If you want to spend, a little bit more time finding the stretch, little movements through here, focusing on your breathing, that's absolutely fine. All right, give it a little pause, spend a minute or two searching, focusing on those slightly longer exhales. For now, we're going to think about starting with that tension. So pulling the foot down through the floor this way, trying to create this rotation at the hip. It's that volume dial again, okay? What you might find at first is, as you're ramping this right now, keep ramping it, that you might find it goes from 0 to what you perceive to be 100, like real quick. You're just like, oh, flipping heck. I haven't got a lot of control over that at the moment. Again, that's fine. All right, find that bit of tension, then keep it on the hip. You might want to just back off again a little bit, bring the tension in again, keep ramping it. So you might be at about sort of 70-80% by now, and we're holding. Hold for another 10 seconds. Trying to pull the foot down through the floor that way, using the floor to create that tension. 2, 1. Now holding still, you're going to try and pull the foot off the floor by means of trying to rotate the hip like this. Keep pulling, keep pulling, keep pulling. And if it's just gone and cramped in here, back off a little bit. Try and go again, a little bit lighter maybe. Keep pulling, keep pulling. You're going to go about 5 seconds more. Keep pulling. Trying to pull the foot off the floor. Try and kick yourself in the head that way, or more that way. 2, 1, chill. Sweet. Right, where we're going now. Holds. To finish. Holds and lift-offs. Beautiful. So, again, find a position. Might be a towel you've got. Again, might be a yoga strap, whatever it is you fancy using. And find that little bit of range. Again, it might be like this. And hold. If you want to go full load, release and hold. That tension irradiate through the rest of the body. 2, 1, slowly down. Pull back up. Relax and hold. Hold. And slowly down. 2, 1. I'll join you for this last rep. I'll try and find a rep. 2, 1. Hold there. Hold there now. Hold. Keep that tension on the hip. and slowly lower it down, even if it's a millimetre. Keep that tension on the hip. Almost pushing the foot back down through the floor now to finish. And lift offs to finish the sesh, please. So when we're ready, guys, all right, we're going to go 5 reps and we're going to pull up. So pull and slowly lower back down. And again, if you watch my foot, if you pull up and you're like, oh, there, hold there, and then slowly lower back down, all right? 2, 1, pull. Slowly lower it back down. 2 more. Pull up. That's 2 more. Slowly back down. 1 more. Pull up. And slowly lower the foot back down. Sweet. Hip cars. Seal the dealio. So, hands come down to pull the torso into a strong shape with the chest facing straight across the floor. Knee comes up towards your chest. Hip opens up. Start to tease out that rotation as you pull down. So I'm pulling in towards this area of my hip as I'm rotating at the hip. 1 more that way. Open the hip up. So I rotate as I'm pushing into this stuff. Try not to go lower back too much. 2 back the other way. Open the hip up. Heel pulls round towards the floor. 1 more rep, please. Pull the knee down. Load this stuff. Open the hip up. Carve that rep out. Pull back down. Breathe. Oh, bring it up to our feet. So we'll just finish after that floor work, just a little bit from standing to finish the session off. All right, guys, for a couple of minutes. So if we go a couple of standing hip cars, so if you need something to put your hand up against, PVC pipes, I'd really recommend, or hand up against the wall is absolutely fine. All right. Again, if you feel like that floor work we just did is absolutely cool for you for now, then please chill there. All right. And that's probably a really good session for you if you're really new to this. All right. The next 5 minutes, you can plug in on the end if you wanna. All right. Entirely up to you. Like I said, I try and make these sessions as accessible to you guys as possible. Don't feel like you have to do all of it every time. All right. So I'm going to do my hip cars. Actually, no, I'm not. I've got a chair here. Handy. So pull up into flexion. Rotate. Open the hip up. And now we're going through our hip car again. Again, if you know all this, I apologise, but as an introduction as well for you guys that are really new to this, it really helps keeping this simple and moving forward. Rotate, open your hip up, and now the foot starts to pull underneath the knee as you rotate in here. Really explore that corner there, over the top of the rep. Pull back down, squeeze that standing leg. Open the hip up. Pull over the top. Pull back down. We'll swap sides. Again, you could have the chair. I would probably, if you're going one thing, prefer going here and moving this hip here. Alright, so if you're going this way around, yoga mat's getting crawled up in that, innit? It's just not cricket. Let's go again. So, open the hip up. Oh yeah. Flexion. Rotate. Open up. You can probably hear my hip a little bit clunky. Rotate. pull down, abduct. Now you start to feel this rotation here. Some of these rotational movements might just feel, quite natural to do, to allow you to explore what we're doing when we're doing our hip car. All right, so from there we're going to filter in some squats. All right, so we can start to feel the work we just done. Possibly you might feel, again, we're not expecting any sort of magic, anything like that, but you might feel the squat a little bit more on your hips. So what you think of doing, again, if you want to cue it up differently, that's absolutely fine. It's pulling just straight into the squat. Okay, wherever you get to, that's totally cool. All right, we're going to go for some slow reps that are probably going to feel quite hard. All right, but we'll move into it over a couple of sets. So pull into it, load the hips up, and now press back out of the rep. Try and keep it smoothish to begin with from the hips. So pull into it, press back out of that rep, pull into it. You might just shuffle the feet to a slightly different position, pull into your rep, drive back out of it. Again, doesn't matter wherever you're getting to in your squat. If you pull into like this position here and you're like, excuse me, I'm good, wicked, focused on this, drive back out from those hips. One more rep, pull into it. Hope that's making sense. We're not trying to like lever ourselves at the rep, we're trying to drive from the hips. So I pull into it, press back out from the hips. Sweet. If you find you get a little bit more, say, of this shape going on when you're squatting, that's cool. Okay. In terms of the positions that you're pulling into, we've not got any external load on us. All right. But what I'm trying to encourage you to do is keep the load on the hips best you can. All right. And try and feel for if we feel like we're sort of starting to change the shapes and just trying to pull as deep as we can at all costs. I hope that's making sense. One more set of that little lot to finish, right, guys? So rotate, pull down slowly, pull down slowly, pull down slowly. Next rep, we're going to go for our little windscreen wiper rep, okay? In this flex position, so heel pulls in. You might get like this much movement, that's fine. Heel pulls towards the outside. Not going to get a lot of movement here, lightly. If you get about that, that's cool. Go one more rep. Pull. Pull. This might be like on fire through here. Open the hip up. Pull down, pull down, pull down. Swap sides, please. I think that was one rep each way. I apologise if we went the same way each time. Let's go one full rep. Pulling round and down. We should have gone the other way really. Pull up, pull up, pull up. Come across the top, little pause here now, and rotate. And rotate. And one more rep. This little pull here. Again, it might be like more this sort of movement. Little pull towards the outside, feel the side of the hip light up. Now open up. Pull through the rest of the rep, best you can. Best you can. And breathe. Last set of squats to finish, alright? Now, this set, you can choose how spicy you make it. Just again, I always encourage clients, people I work with, to pay attention to the feedback they're getting in the session. If anything feels like sketchy, there's no need to try and work through it. On the flip side, people can surprise themselves. So they really start paying attention to their body and they get more confident with what they're doing. And they can start to bring more intensity to the reps they're doing. It's like, hang on, this actually feels like really freaking good right now. I didn't realise that I could feel this strong in this position. If so, like, go with that. All right, so from there, little squeeze of the legs at the top. Now I want you to think of pulling in at the hips. So by that I mean we're going to pull in through here. So pull in, pull in, pull in into the rep. Try Close this space down, lengthen this stuff. You get to where you can get into your squat, pause, and then drive back out from the hips. Okay, let's go 2 more. Pull into it, slow, slow. I don't want you to be efficient. I want you to ask this tissue to work really hard. If you get to like here, rock solid, that's cool. You don't need to force it. Hold, and then think of pushing back out from the hips. Like this stuff here is contracting to pull you or push you out the rep. My legs are lit right now. 1 more rep. Pull into it. Again, like if you want to make this last rep like pretty hard, go for it. If it's feeling good, load up and press back out still slowly. Keep it slow, keep it slow, keep it slow, keep it slow. 2, 1. Sweet. A couple of hip cards to finish. These hip cards now you can think of, again, over 1 session, you might be feeling a little bit more confident than you were with the first rep we did today. Just trying to keep it smooth to finish. Have a little explore of the hip, okay? So, open up. Rotate. Stirring the pot up. And it might be, like I said, reps at the moment are a little bit smaller. That's totally cool. So more like the majority of people I coach, their hip car, or the movement they get at the hip, probably a little bit smaller than what they initially thought they had. That's absolutely cool. Rotate, pull back down. Swap sides to finish, please, guys. Like I said before, like on your end, obviously you guys do whatever you want to do in your sessions. If you want to put like some tunes on, do it. If you want to mute me, I will not be offended. He says through gritted teeth. Sweet. Yeah, create whatever vibes you want. Obviously at your end, I obviously don't need to tell you that, but it can always seem a little bit like, I don't know, I'm talking into a camera, can't see anybody, there's no one else obviously in this room, and in terms of trying to create a vibe myself, I just want to keep stuff clear for you guys so you can get a real understanding of what we're trying to achieve. If you want to stick the tunes on at your end, then obviously, yeah, like feel free to do so. I feel odd like saying that, because obviously don't do what you want, but in terms of vibes, go for it. But I hope this stuff is being conveyed clear enough from my end. Take it easy. Hope you enjoyed the sesh. See you next week.